Before we get into the NBA stuff, we got to ask Chris Mannix, who does an absolutely terrific job covering the NBA and has for a long time. You can check him out on social media at SI Chris Mannix, obviously doing it for Sports Illustrated for a long time at this point. Chris, always good to talk with you, man. Always good to see you. We're starting the show talking about food, of course, because it's a Meat Friday. We got Darren Ravello on a little bit later in the show to talk about the hot dog eating contest. Let's say you had to be in an eating contest and your life depended on it. You had to win. You had to be a top 5 or whatever. What food would you pick, Chris, compared to other normal people?
I mean, the short answer is pizza because I could go through a large pie faster. I think anybody I know. The more granular answer is the buffalo chicken sandwich from the Fours in Boston. The Fours is a kind of famous sports bar in the Boston area, and at one point when I was living around there, I would eat probably 3 or 4 of those a week. It's actually called the Doug Flutie in Boston. It's named for, of course, the great ex-BC quarterback, and I could probably hoover that in about 15 seconds.
I actually just thought of something about these eating contests. Would you have a couple beers ahead of time? Because after I've had a couple beers and I'm hungry, I can eat like an absolute ravishing madman. So it fills up your stomach a little bit, but man, when you're hungry, you've been drinking for a couple hours, you can really eat. Thoughts?
Yeah, but I don't think that helps you in the moment, right? Like you get hungry after, 8 to 10 beers and you get home and the idea of ordering like a Whopper sounds like a good one. In the moment though, you're just adding stuff to your stomach. So the only thing I'd want is a little bit of water to help wash that down.
All right, let's get into the NBA stuff, Chris. Thank you, by the way, for humoring me there. I like it. Let's start with, I guess, the question in my mind, which is, are the Celtics just this good, or are the Mavericks kind of choking a little bit here in the finals?
I think it's more about the Celtics being this good. I mean, going on a 12-2 run during the conference playoffs, up 3-0 in this round, you have to start with just how good they are. They were, historically good in some ways during the regular season. Their point differential was fantastic. Their offense was, clicking at, in some areas, all-time great rate. They were the most prolific three-point shooting team in the NBA. They were just, I think it was a fraction of a percentage from being the number 1 team in efficiency in that area as well. They are great. They've got great offensive players. They've got elite wing defenders. You really have to go deep into the Celtics bench to find any real areas of weakness. And on top of all that, like they've got the experience that comes with kind of, going through the highs and lows of being a contender in recent years. They lost in the finals 2 years ago. They lost in the conference finals last year. They're kind of the perfect combination of when talent and opportunity and preparation kind of meet each other at one point.
How sustainable is this, Chris? Like, I don't know all their contracts and what they've got for next year. I mean, is this a group that's going to be able to stay together the next few years?
So the NBA has done a fantastic job of trying to legislate dynasties out of the sport. Like, dynasties over the last 20 years have been fun to talk about, whether it's the Lakers dynasty in the early 2000s. San Antonio had one that spread out over 12 to 14 years. Miami was a mini dynasty, most recently Golden State. They make for great TV ratings, but the NBA doesn't love them because the NBA, really going back to the days of David Stern as commissioner, has sought NFL-style parity. And look, this year is going to be the 6th year in a row there has been a new NBA champion crowned. And that's what the NBA loves. Like, they want new faces, new teams in the finals every single year. All that being said, the Celtics are as equipped as any team in recent memory to run off 2, maybe 3 championships. Their stars, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, are under contract for the long term. Jaylen Brown just signed what was the richest contract in NBA history last summer, and Jason Tatum is about to sign what's going to be the richest contract in NBA history this summer. Drew Holiday has an extension. Kristaps Porzingis got an extension. Derek White's the one guy who's only got 1 year left on his contract. But if the Celtics win a championship, there's no doubt in my mind that Wyc Grousbeck and ownership in Boston is going to extend him as well. So you've got a bunch of guys in their 20s and early 30s. Yeah, you got to worry about Al Horford, who's 38 years old, and how long he can go. But this is a window, Russ, that I think is open for 2 or 3 more years.
Let's look at the other side of it, which is Luka Doncic and the Mavs and Kyrie. What's going on here? And do you think that the critique of Luka has gone a little bit too far?
No, I don't. And look, during Game 3, I was on social media tweeting that as great as Luka is on the other end of the floor defensively, it's oftentimes like playing 5-on-4. Like he's just not engaged on that end. And what the Celtics are doing, which very few of the Western Conference contenders did, is they're attacking him. Like you watch these games and they're putting Luka in a whole lot of actions, making him defend on that end of the floor. They're doing the same thing to Kyrie Irving, but I think Irving's having a little more success defensively. Luka, it's just there's just not a lot of effort on that end of the floor. And you can say, look, he's been banged up. He assumes a lot of the offensive burden, but in order for Dallas to be a consistent championship contender, in order for them to even win a championship over the next 4 or 5 years, Luka has got to become more of a two-way player. He doesn't have to become a defensive stopper, but he can't be a defensive liability, which he is right now. Now, beyond Luka, there are other problems the Mavericks have. Their supporting cast has been non-existent. You look at some of the numbers for PJ Washington, for Derek Jones Jr., for Daniel Gafford, for Maxi Kleber, for Josh Green. None of these guys have been impact players. Derek Lively was impactful last game for the first time really all series. So, there's been an argument that Luka and Kyrie are the greatest offensive backcourt in NBA history. Even if you think they are, you can't win at the highest level without your role players stepping up. Look at Boston's role players. Drew Holiday has been fantastic. Derek White had 16 points in the last game. Sam Hauser has shot lights out in 2 of the 3 games of this series. The Celtics, in addition to their stars showing up, are getting outstanding performances from their role players, whereas Dallas's have barely shown up.
You got to check him out on social media. He is fantastic, as you can tell. He is all over the NBA, has been for a long time. At SI, Chris Mannix. Chris, really appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much.
You got it, Russ.
2 interesting notes, by the way, about the Celtics and Chris Mannix. Number 1, he was a ball boy for them growing up for a long time, which is always going to be a little interesting because obviously he's worked in the business so long now that you disassociate with that for the most part. But it's interesting. I grew up a huge Eagles fan. They never wanted me. I never played for them. But now that I do their preseason games and do other work for them, it kind of comes back a little bit each year. Plus, it's hard. Like, all my family and friends are diehards, and so it becomes a social thing. It becomes I wanna have something to engage with my friends and family, Paul.